Good afternoon and welcome to our Hawkeye Parents and Family webinars. My name is Lisa Kelly and I work in the Office of Academic Support and Retention, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. If you're unfamiliar with our webinars, they're hosted on the first Friday of each month from noon to 1 p.m. We hope that each one provides you with up-to-date information that may apply to your students' transition to the University of Iowa. We know that parent and family members play a vital role in student success, and we hope that these webinars provide a platform for us to provide you with resources that help you support your students in their success. If you can't attend every live webinar, we do record and post them later on both our website and on YouTube. For more information, future topics, or to sign up for webinars, please visit parents.uiowa.edu and click on the Resources tab. Each webinar has a short presentation and then a question and answer portion, where you can get your questions answered by our campus experts. One note for tonight, a few people seem to be having some audio problems. Things you can do, you can call in on the phone if your computer's not working, or let us know via chat and we'll see if there's anything we can do. And we do record these though, and about an hour after the program ends, it will be up on YouTube with full sound. So if you just can't hear us, you can get to it about an hour later. And there's an email there. If you have questions, you can email us after the fact as well. Okay, so today's webinar is Study Abroad. What's it all about? We are very lucky to have a wonderful campus partner here with us today. Christine Jerf is a senior advisor at international programs and the coordinator for study abroad programs. She will share information that will help you and your students in understanding the who, what, when, and how of study abroad. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Christine.
Thanks, Lisa. So yes, I am a study abroad advisor in international programs. And today I'll be talking to you about what is study abroad, why should students study abroad, who is eligible, where and when students can study abroad, and how students can study abroad. What exactly is the procedure moving forward? So let's start off with what is study abroad. It is credit-bearing international coursework. That this coursework then counts towards the University of Iowa degree. So it is literally taking a course in a foreign country. There's some other options: interning abroad and service learning abroad. So what can students study then abroad? What kind of experiences? I apologize. So what can students study abroad? Students can fulfill general education requirements. These are all requirements for every student at general education. They can fulfill major and minor requirements. They can take elective classes that aren't offered here at the University of Iowa. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. There's options to do independent research, and there's also internships for academic credit. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about those later, specifically. So what kinds of experiences are offered at the University of Iowa through study abroad? We have basically 4 different kinds of programs. The first is what we call UI administered programs, or many times these are called faculty-led programs. In this situation, a faculty member from the University of Iowa takes students to a foreign country and then teaches a course in that country. The next program is what we call vetted affiliated programs. These programs are administered through partners that the University of Iowa has established. They're nonprofits that the university has worked with for several years. One of these advantages to using our partners is it allows us to send students around the world without having to have a University of Iowa faculty or staff on site. The reason we partner with these different nonprofits and providers is because we are aware of the curriculum that they offer, the safety protocols, which is a very important aspect of study abroad for our office. As an example, I do advise for Latin America, and we use third-party providers in Latin America. One of the advantages there is students live with host families, so our providers do interview the families, do background checks, visit the home, and are clearly vetted for the safety and security of the student. The third option is internship placements. The University of Iowa has recently formed a partnership with a company called IES Abroad. They are a industry leader. In this situation, students can do an 8-week internship in the summertime that allows them either 3 or 6 semester hours of academic credit. The options for students are quite worldwide. They include Italy, Spain, Chile, Ireland, the United Kingdom, Sydney, Australia, France, China, Germany, South Africa. Only France and Germany do have language requirements. It is recommended for Santiago, Chile, but all the rest are done in English. So students do not have to be proficient in a foreign language. One of the things that's advantageous about this internship program is the fact that there's academic credit attached to it. So that allows University of Iowa students to access federal financial aid and the scholarships that the University of Iowa International Programs does offer for study abroad. Then finally, the fourth is exchanges. This is literally a one-for-one. A University of Iowa student exchanges places with a student who goes to Lancaster University in the UK. Students pay University of Iowa tuition here and fees, and basically are paying for that incoming student. Then the student in the UK pays their tuition and fees there, and they swap places. This type of program is usually advocated for students that have studied abroad or lived abroad before, because students need to be very independent, very outgoing, because they need to manage this process with little support. It's just like being an international student that comes to the University of Iowa. There are also some programs that cross over. As an example, many of our affiliated programs do have internships for semester long, in which students only do about 10 hours, but there's also volunteering that's available through the different programs as well. So why should students study abroad? There's 4 main categories that we typically talk about, and the first is academic expansion. As I mentioned, students can fulfill requirements while studying abroad. These can be major requirements, minor requirements, certificates, general education. So by doing classes in a different cultural context, there's a different aspect added to the class. That's why when we talk about academic expansion. Students can also learn by doing. Many times students think of, or people think of, languages. You do that by doing it while you're studying abroad. That is the case. Obviously, if you wake up in Barcelona and your host mom is saying buenos dias, you're going to think right away in Spanish, and you're going to learn by doing. But there's also a lot of coursework that is done with learn by doing or experiential learning as well. One of my students recently got back from Iceland, where she took a glaciology class, and they actually went out and visited the glaciers. Took soil samples and did, various tests, whatever you do with glaciers. And again, that's a hands-on, experiential learning, learn by doing. Expanding options of taking classes that aren't offered at the University of Iowa. As mentioned, my big example is my student that studied in Iceland who took a glaciology class. It's cold here in the winter, but we don't have glaciers. She also took what was called a volcanology class, where she studied volcanoes. So University of Iowa has a lot of course offerings, but those have to be 2 classes that we don't have here on campus. So there's options students can take. Some of the other is, we have community health and traditional medicine in different countries, India and China, Madagascar. So those are some offering some advantages to studying abroad, is taking those courses that you can't get here at Iowa. One of the other things when I talk about academic expansion, I always also talk about when students return. Many times when students study abroad, they either solidify their passion for their major, or they find maybe a new path or a new aspect to what they were studying that they really want to focus on. It tends to help them engage once they get back on campus and are, for lack of a better word, they're just really jazzed about what they're studying. So it is study abroad. The students are studying, and the academic sides feature prominently in study abroad. Some of the other reasons to study abroad is professional development. There's been a lot of studies done, a lot of questionnaires and surveys to employers about why they like students and applicants who have studied abroad. What has come back is the fact that while studying abroad, students learn skills that employers are looking for in applicants. These include problem-solving skills, being unfamiliar with areas, being able to work in groups that have different multicultural groups where people come from different backgrounds. The idea of just even planning out a study abroad experience leads to decision-making, organization and prioritization, obtaining and processing information, and setting goals. These are all transferable skills that employers are looking for. Personal growth. This is another area that both students and parents talk about when their student returns. Maturity, independence. Students come back with a feeling of accomplishment. They didn't think that maybe they could go to a foreign university and pass a class, or be able to navigate and find their way around, and they do, and they're successful. So their self-assurance, their self-reliance is increased. Parents talk about the maturity they see in their students once they get back. The initiative, the problem-solving skills are very prominent as well. These are all things that the parents talk about when coming back after students return. Finally, global citizenship is another reason why students study abroad and the advantages to studying abroad. So when students are studying abroad, there is a heightened awareness of the global interconnectedness. Getting out of their environment, their surroundings, they see why, some of the topics they've heard in national news and on the global stage are important, and how it does really affect them. Students also learn how to collaborate internationally, whether it's with a professor, whether it's with a landlord if you're renting an apartment, whether it's with a host mom, and then understanding a culture in its context. We hear things, oh, that sounds so weird. Why would someone do it that way? Why don't they have dorms in Latin America? Well, once you're in that culture and you live it day to day, you understand what it means and why things are the way they are. So you become more of a global citizen. So who can study abroad? Any UI student that is in good academic and disciplinary standing is eligible to study abroad. Students from 165 majors have studied abroad in the academic year 2016-2017. Many have the idea that study abroad, because of their major, is not for them. There are majors that are a little bit stricter, primarily the sciences, the STEM majors, in which courses need to be taken sequentially. So they think, oh, I can't go for a semester, or I can't study abroad at all, nothing will come back. That's when we work with the student and we plan early for their study abroad experience. So it can be done. It's done all the time. There are 200 sponsored programs that we have at the University of Iowa in 49 countries, going back to, some of the majors that believe they can't study abroad. Some of the options that they do is a summer program or a winter program. We even have a few spring break programs. So a whole semester, a whole academic year is not necessarily the best option for certain majors, but rather a summer program. And who studies abroad and when? Statistically, it's juniors and seniors. This has to do with the fact that as soon as a student finishes their spring of their sophomore year, credit-wise, they're considered a junior. So if they study abroad between the summer of their sophomore year and their junior year, that's technically a junior. The same thing happens at the end of a spring of a junior semester. Then if you study abroad the summer, then you will be considered statistically a senior. That's why seniors and juniors statistically are when students study abroad. However, students do study abroad their sophomore year. There are advantages to studying abroad earlier. Again, if the major's not quite set, or within the major's not quite set, there's different tracks and majors sometimes. Studying abroad can help tease out where the passion lies. It also gives students the option to study abroad more than once if you go early. So, and then when, as I mentioned, there's various options, spring, fall academic year. One of the biggest things that we work on is to have students stay on track for their graduation. Again, going back to the fact that they can earn major, minor, gen ed credit, and we're showing statistically that if a student studies abroad, they have a higher probability of graduating in 4 years than not. And we attributed this to the planning of study abroad. If you have your curriculum planned out early on and you fit in study abroad, then that will lead you to graduating and sticking to that plan. For health, safety and concerns, what we have in place is a mandatory international health insurance. Students are automatically enrolled. This is mandatory by the Board of Regents that covers anything from minor sprains, sinus infections, to anything more catastrophic. I did have a student whose appendix burst while she was studying in Mexico, so obviously the insurance covered it. We have a dedicated staff to health, safety, and security. We have an associate director of health, safety, and security and a senior advisor. They are both dialed into government agencies that have their pulse on what is going on around the world. They are the first to know of an earthquake. They're the first to know of flooding that's going on. And then we're checking constantly where our students are and what's going on, that they're safe. There is a 24/7 emergency contact. If help is needed, the associate director carries the phone with her 24/7. And if she's not available, then it actually goes to either our other associate director in international programs or our associate dean. So we have mandatory pre-departure orientation course that all students are signed up for. This course talks about health, safety, and security. It talks about what it's like to be an American overseas. It talks about banking as well. It talks about social relationships, what are friendships like, possibly a little bit different. So it covers quite a bit of ground. And then all UI-sponsored programs are vetted and monitored by our office. As I mentioned, the reason we have our affiliated programs is because we have vetted them. We know how they react in emergency situations. We know who to contact in emergency situations. And again, they're constantly being monitored by our associate director and our senior advisor. So funding for study abroad. Federal financial aid is applicable to study abroad. The UI scholarships are applicable in most situations. Then outside of that, the International Program Study Abroad Office has its own scholarships. These are either need-based, merit-based, or based on GPA. We have a Diversity Ambassador Scholarship as well. And then various colleges on campus do offer their own scholarships to study abroad. And then we have external scholarships that we let students know about. The Gilman is a scholarship, a government-funded scholarship that is applicable to Pell Grant recipients. The Bourne Scholarship has to do, again, a government scholarship. It has to do with critical languages. If you're studying a language that the government deems to be critical for our defense, our international relations, there are scholarships to study in countries that speak that language to become more proficient. And then diversityabroad.com is a company that its sole purpose is to help those from diverse backgrounds to study abroad. So they offer a lot of scholarships as well. So family support is extremely important when studying abroad. From the get-go, from the beginning, one of the things that family can do is help students understand why they want to study abroad, what are their goals, what is their, are they serious about this? Do they realize the academic component? This is not vacation. I had a colleague who had a student come in and talk to her and ask very poignant questions, and questions that parents usually ask and not students. And my colleague let her know that she was quite surprised by her questions and that they were very good questions. And the student then later let her know that her parents were making her write a PowerPoint presentation and present to them why they should support her in her desire to study abroad. So that's an option. You can think about that. But discussing finances and budgeting, that's one thing that students come back and say, wow, I really learned how to budget and what not to do. So obviously talk about health and safety. And then the support while they're abroad. One thing that I've learned through my niece who recently studied abroad and just watching her grow up is my sister gets the calls of panic, but she doesn't necessarily get the calls of, oh yeah, it's been fixed. So that is one thing that will happen when they're at college, and it will happen while they're studying abroad. So be prepared for that and just support them in their desires and their goals. So
Great.
Please ask questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christine, for all this great information. We'll now move into the question and answer portion of the webinar. Please keep in mind that our presenter is unable to answer questions specifically about your student's experience, but she can provide information that may be helpful in guiding your student. If you have a question, type it into the question box on the side, the chat box. We'll then read the question so all participants can hear, and then folks will answer the question. If we're unable to get to your questions during the webinar, we will follow up with you via email. I'll just give it a few seconds to see if anyone's got a question first. Okay, so we do have a couple of questions to start with. First question is, you talked about the ability to use financial aid to cover expenses. Who do we talk to find out more about how financial aid can be applied to study abroad?
The financial aid office is the expert on that. They can assist you with how to apply financial aid towards study abroad. If there's questions about the scholarships that our office offers, then definitely our office is the place to go for those questions.
Cool. And I'll follow up too. Like if your student has a UI scholarship and admissions scholarship, you definitely want to check with financial aid and admissions and things and making sure the scholarship will continue through the financial aid. Will continue through the study abroad and be applicable to it. So, okay, another question. My student found a program that her friends are doing at a different university. How do we find out if this is a UI affiliated program that she might be able to do?
Our website lists all of our affiliated programs. So that's a good place to start, is the international at I'm going blank, of course, on our website. But if you go to the University of Iowa website, put in study abroad in the search, our website will come up. And then within that, we have a program search. That is one, that would be how to find out.
Okay. If a student does a program with one of those faculty-led programs, do they get the opportunity to experience like instructors and or students from the country they're in, or are they just with UI students the whole time?
Most of the time they're just with UI students. It depends on the type of program that it is. There's, as I mentioned, some of the program types can be kind of crossed in the sense that there's programs where students will volunteer, and that volunteering may lead them to, obviously meet locals, meet other students. There's also, some programs, students are meeting with non-governmental agencies or nonprofits, other things like that. So they, again, would be mingling with the local culture.
Okay. What's the most popular, is there like a most popular study abroad program for UI students?
There, a couple of statistics are, most students go to either Italy, the UK, or Spain. Those are our most popular countries. The University of Iowa, and speaking about the faculty-led program, we have a faculty-led program called India Winterim, and a lot of people know about it, but students go with faculty. Usually there's anywhere from 4 to 6 classes offered simultaneously, so 4 to 6 faculty members take students to India over winter break. And because of this program and because it's so large, the University of Iowa sends more students to the country of India than any other university in the United States. So again, kind of some of the popular ones. I would say beyond that, it's just specific to majors, it's specific to what students are studying, minor certificates, and then they just spread out across the globe.
Okay, so that's at the moment all the questions we have for today. So thank you again for Christine Jerf for joining us today. All the webinars, as I mentioned earlier, will be posted online at uc.uiowa.edu/family-resources. It's on the website right there. So additional questions can be sent to uc-retention@uiowa.edu for a response from a University of Iowa staff member. Please join us for next month's webinar, Managing the Winter Break Transition, on December 1st from noon to 1, hosted by the Academic Advising Center. Thank you so much for joining us today. On Iowa, go Hawks!